Recording stopped.
As we all know, good, healthy relationships require that individuals be able to have their personal times as well. Anyway, I'm giving you over to Joni here.
And
Jeb, nice seeing you again. Well, nice talking to you.
Enjoy, everyone.
Nice talking to you, Jeb.
It was a pleasure speaking with all of you.
And it's already 6 o'clock, and we already
Recording in
have
progress.
Judge Wilbur on, Will on, and we are starting You Be the Judge. We're here every Wednesday at 6 p.m., ready to have a conversation, discussion, information, understanding, and hopefully brings you into action. My beautiful I'm so surrounded by such incredible women that I am so humbled. It humbles me. But we have Marilyn Pierre, attorney or judge, soon to be circuit court judge of Montgomery County, and we have Judge Claudia Barbara. Welcome, everyone, to You Be the Judge. Marilyn, how was your week been since the last Wednesday we talked?
My week is great, but I'm thinking, I know you mean it, but you never say intelligent. You know, it's like not only are we beautiful, but we are intelligent and we are well-spoken and we are elegant and eloquent and, of course, loquacious. We don't even have to say that one, do we?
Yes, we do.
And I love the virtual background. I love that.
Oh, thank you. And then we have Judge Claudia Barbara. Thank you. The loquacious Claudia Barbara.
Hello, everyone. You know, there's been so much that's been happening in the news. Yeah. Everything has been bing, 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 bing. And just today, another wow moment with the criminal charges brought against the police officers and paramedics in the Elijah Mclean case.
It dropped today. Wow.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you guys get to educate me today because I had 2 hearings, so I'm not.
Oh, you missed that one then. Yeah, you missed it.
Yeah.
Well, that's because you're working. You're the only one working out of.
Well, we're all working. But
oh, I was working too.
Yeah. So what happened? And if you could let us know, who is Elijah
Mclean?
Mclean, thank you.
He is a very young, very young, and black male that was leaving a store in Colorado with a mask on. Now, this is pre-pandemic, but he was stopped by police and he was arrested to the point that paramedics came and administered some type of heavy dosage of anesthesia or something to him, and to cut to the chase, it killed him. Ooh. And no one was ever charged. And this story kind of really surfaced after the George Floyd death because it happened before then. But no charges. And then all of a sudden there were protests. People mobilized and made it a media aware. It was just media awareness.
A media accountability. That's what has happening. It's a media accountability.
Right. And when I saw the news excerpts, and I go beyond that oftentimes and read as much as I can. Because, you know, the media sometimes gets it right. Sometimes they don't get it right. But the more and more you learn about it, it was a tragic death. And he died too young. Yeah. Way too young. And the fact of the matter is that this is another case about police culture because it didn't have to end that way. And it's another case about the length of time, because I think they would have just kept ignoring this case and keep it hidden from the public, but for the George Floyd incident. But it continued to rise, just like Breonna Taylor's case rose in recognition. But the case was all about accountability, and there was an uprising or a continued protest going on because nothing was done. So finally, something.
I think that's where we sit here, even on the show You Be the Judge, and we're here every Wednesday at 6 p.m., is that we want to talk about sometimes the something, and we're going to talk about a lot of times the nothing. And can be consumed with the something. And there's more of the nothings that ever gets talked about, and yet it's still happening. It's constantly happening. As you see the backdrop, the Freedom Ride, the fight continues. This Saturday, the March on Washington. It was an amazing march. We could talk about that another time. But as the speakers were up on the podium and in several different sections of D.C. had this vibe of wake up. I think that's how I said to myself. DC had the vibe of there's information popping over here. There's information popping over here. There's people talking about certain things over here. And it's just tons of, and I'm just such a soaking sponge. One of the things that sticks out is so far this year, 40,000 gun murders. 40,000. 2/3 of that is of black and brown people. More than half of the 2/3 is all males of being shot. It's incredible, the numbers. And we know, being in Maryland, what Baltimore is going through, and they've had as many murders as they are having a day and a month. It's insane how things are happening. People are not being charged. People are not being caught. People are not being convicted. And it's just the continuous violence. Are we in a more violent state now than we ever have been? Or is it just more information that we ever have been? What do you guys think?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think that we have the power of the internet. We also have the power of cell phone recordings. And that just magnifies the situation. Even when police officers think no camera is in sight, it can be, because that's what we saw in Sandra Bland's case. And oftentimes when you visit Attorney Ben Crump's website, there's video after video after video of some bystanders just filming
his
it.
whole website is nothing about video. It's incredible. Like, if you guys don't ever go to Ben Crump's website, and it's literally video after video, and I get the feeds too from all kinds of areas. Like, did you see this? Dr. P, did you see this? Did you see this? And I'm like, and I'm seeing it because they're sending it to me, and it is and it's across the country. It's not like
jaw-dropping.
Yes.
Jaw-dropping.
Yes.
And to the extent that you do see it, and I'm so glad the person in the Sandra Bland case, had the courage to videotape. Same thing with Walter Scott being shot in the back.
Right.
Somebody videotaping that. Obviously, those police officers did not think that was happening, because it appeared from their own work that they were going to plant that gun and make it look like Walter Scott did something to cause his death that was involving a gun, him reaching for the gun. So, the videos that are becoming evidence, I think, is part of the answer. But I think that at the same time, there is not, in my opinion, a slowdown of police interactions that are going the wrong way. After George Floyd, post George Floyd, you would think
it would slow down.
The conviction,
right,
of Derek Chauvin, that there would be some decrease, like, okay, we got it. We don't want all our rights stripped away as police officers. We're going to be more engaged and de-escalate and be on that train track, as opposed to the, fierce law and order and biased policing that we've seen so many times in so many communities.
But see, police officer and policing, and we don't separate sheriffs, marshals, precincts, there are all these different factions of law and order. And they're probably thinking, my district attorney is not going to let that happen here, and my police chief is all on board of me putting a SWAT sticker on someone's car, or spray painting, or my police chief is putting a SWAT sticker on another police officer's desk. There are a lot of hometown, good old boy, it's not going to happen here. It may happen there, but we're going to protect our own because this is what we do here, wherever the here is. Marilyn?
Well, I was trying to get the videotape for Elijah McLean, and I don't know if everybody wants to see it because, like I said, I've been out of the loop today, so my brain was on other things. You know, it has to be like that sometimes when you're representing your client. They like it for you to be thinking about them at the moment. So does everybody want to see it? I'm so excited now that I know how to share screen and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Put it on.
Okay. Yeah. So that way we could all be on the same page as I was talking about before. So let me see. Let me zoom it to the beginning and so.
Well, as Marilyn Pierre is putting up, getting this video ready, what we're going to talk about today is it's about, someone had just said, I'm not going to mention his name, Joni, that it's about social. Okay, here we go.
A security camera picks up 23-year-old Elijah McLean at this Shell gas station buying soft drinks and wearing a face mask. His family lawyer told NBC News he was in the habit of wearing this mask. After paying for his items, he turns around and bows to the man behind him in line. His family told NBC News this was his signature gratitude bow. At 10:30 p.m., a man calls 911.
Let me sure you have a mask on. Who looks you? He might be okay. A good person or a bad person?
Yeah.
So, mask on.
Okay. Were any weapons involved or mentioned?
No.
Okay. What color is the mask, or what does it look like?
Black.
Black mask?
It's like a...
Is it like a ski mask, or what type of mask is it?
Yeah, it's like a ski mask.
Elijah McLean is walking home from a nearby Shell gas station. He's holding a plastic bag with his purchases. At 10:43 p.m., Aurora police officer Nathan Woodyard spots McLean.
Do a favor, stop right there. Hey, stop right there. Stop. 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 I have a right to stop you because you're being suspicious.
9 seconds after exiting his vehicle, the officer initiates physical contact.
Stop tensing up, dude.
10:44 p.m. Officer Jason Rosenblatt and Officer Randy Rodema are now also on the scene and surround McLean.
No, I am an introvert. Please respect the boundaries that I am speaking.
Stop tensing up.
Stop.
Relax.
Stop. I'm going home.
Relax, or I'm going to have to change this situation. Stop.
Leave me alone.
Stop.
Can you please? No, leave me alone.
No, we're gonna
talk. You guys started to arrest me, and I was stopping my music to listen. Now let go.
The situation escalates when the officers try to move McLean onto the grass. Officer Woodyard's body cam is knocked to the ground.
You guys.
Officer Rodema says this. It's unclear from the body cameras whether or not McLean reached for an officer's weapon. All three officers wrestle McLean to the ground.
Give us more. Give us some more units. We're fighting them.
At this moment, one of the officers uses a carotid control hold on McLean, a tactic that involves an officer placing his arm around a subject's neck, applying pressure, and restricting blood to the brain via the carotid arteries. Responding officers later told an Aurora police investigator that McLean briefly went unconscious, and the officers released the hold. At 10:46 p.m., just over 2 minutes after the first officer made contact with him, McLean is pinned to the ground and says this. At 10:46 p.m.
The ground. We have to use carotid. just going home. I met you, and I'm different.
You come out? He's out? Was he out?
I heard some snoring. I just
he wasn't completely. He didn't lose consciousness.
I'm just different.
I'm just different.
That's all. That's all I was doing.
It was actually Rosenblatt.
I'm so sorry.
You're going, dude.
I have no gun.
That's where I tried Carotid.
I don't do that stuff. I don't do any fighting.
Other units that are not here.
Why?
They can slow it down a little bit.
I don't do drugs. I don't even kill flies.
We got him.
I don't eat meat.
Do we have anything other than you being suspicious?
I don't touch people.
No. I mean, I tried to stop him. Start walking away. Yeah, cruise 26, we need to slow everybody down.
Responding officers later tell an investigator that Mclean was actively resisting and fighting the officers' attempts to place him into handcuffs.
All I was trying to do,
I tried.
was become better.
We started it because he reached for Rosie's gun. And we had him on the wall. All right.
At 10:49 p.m., Mclean throws up a first time.
You go.
Stop.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to do that. I can't breathe correctly because...
Over the next 4 minutes, Mclean gets sick a few more times. Officers are also heard multiple times asking him to stop fighting.
Rolling this way, dude?
Yeah.
Are you able to?
Legs locking up.
There you go. Just like that.
You're good.
Don't get up, dude. It's not going to be good for you. I'm telling you right now.
If you keep messing around, I'm going to bring my dog out. He's going to dog bite you. You understand me?
At 10:54 p.m., Mclean is still on the ground, and an officer says this.
So when the ambulance gets here, we're going to go ahead and get some ketamine. Yeah, sounds good. Perfect. Let's give that a couple of minutes.
Whatever he's on, he has incredible strength.
Yeah, crazy strength.
10:59 p.m. A fire medic administers 500 milligrams of ketamine to Mclean in an attempt to sedate him. 2 to 3 minutes later, he is loaded onto an ambulance. And at 11:07 p.m., just over 20 minutes after the first officer made contact, responding officers are told Mclean does not have a pulse.
He just cored. Are you serious? Yeah. Okay. So, sit tight.
Mclean was resuscitated at the scene and taken to the hospital where he would be declared brain dead 3 days later. The coroner concluded last November that a combination of physical exertion and a narrow left coronary artery contributed to Mclean's death, but could not determine the cause of his death. He added that it could have been either an accidental death caused by a reaction to the ketamine, a natural death, or a death linked to the carotid control hold used by officers. The district attorney later announced he would not charge the officers involved, saying that the evidence does not support a conclusion that Mclean's death was the direct result of any particular action or individual. The family told NBC News that they believed an independent investigation should have been conducted initially. Now the governor has appointed a special prosecutor to reopen the investigation. We've reached out to the police union for comment and have not heard back.
So,
hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out.
I have seen it before, and as I'm watching again, I am allowing myself to be okay with crying and being upset and hurt. If you don't know what ketamine is, it's a relaxation dose. Most people get it to where if they're in a hospital to be in a relaxed dream state. I don't know what I'm not a doctor or a nurse, and I don't know what the proper dose is supposed to be. I just know 500 milligrams is a lot. That's what I do know. What are your thoughts? Marilyn, first time. What are you thinking?
These videos are hard to watch. Oh my gosh. I mean, they're hard to watch. When you hear somebody saying, I'm different, I'm an introvert, I don't do things like this. And I know that the adrenaline is running, but maybe somebody should just step back and say, maybe we should listen. I mean, they said he was fighting, but they said he was fighting. The indication to me didn't seem like,
Well, I guess the problem that I have is that why was he stopped? He's walking home. What is criminal about
suspicion? It's suspicion. I mean, here's the thing. I remember being in New York and being pulled over by the cops walking with 4 of my other cousins.
Wrong.
And wait a minute. But like they said, when they put us up against the wall and we had to drop our basketball, it was suspicions of gang behavior. So we were
something made up. Go ahead.
But when we got home, we were actually told, when you guys walk from the park together, split up so they don't stop you. This is our defense then. Like, don't walk together because you don't want to create suspicion. Now, we're fighting against a perception of X ... I don't know how to defend against that. And I've been doing defense for thousands, it seemed like 100 years. You cannot defend against someone else's mental perception of what they believe you are.
Mm-hmm.
I know Patricia had her hand up, or she's clapping. Patricia?
She's clapping.
Okay. Yeah.
And that is true, because just like he said, he wasn't breaking any rules. And I like the fact that the video showed his last moment on camera and how respectful that he was. Because usually what you hear is, oh, yes, he had something on him. He was carrying something. But this is someone who seemed very, very respectful. And we don't know why he wanted to cover his face, but it was his right to do so. And I don't even understand somebody calling saying, hey, this person is walking around with his face covered up. So what if his face is covered up? He's
that sort of reminds me of the Amy Cooper situation where she called the cops.
Yeah.
It's the calling of the cops and the fact that the cops believe whoever's on the other end of the line that the person walking down the street is posing a threat. In what way? Who is he threatening? He's by himself.
Okay,
that's what I saw.
Let's go backwards. Let's take the back end or the opposite end. We're in a neighborhood of your own, and you see something. They say something, right? That is the common beating of the drum. If you see something, say something. Someone saw something they believe didn't seem right. Now, I don't know what it's very different for a male, female, black male, black woman, all races in between.
But see, my problem is that you really didn't see anything other than a person walking down the street. I mean, you didn't see anything. I mean, what is it that you saw that was criminal? The man was walking, not in a gang with people. He was by himself.
Well, on TV, people are held up by a masked assailant. Or on the news, a masked assailant has attacked. We don't know what the news has been like that week. Were there previous attacks in the neighborhood? Was there a person that they were on the lookout for?
But what I think happens is, if you follow that logically down the road, you're going to have laws like they have in France where, women can't wear the burqa. I have a neighbor who wears the burqa. I've never seen anything but her eyes. I mean, she has beautiful eyes, but just because she's walking down the street and I can't see any part of her face doesn't mean I'm going to call the police and say that she's suspicious. I guess if we were in France, I would have been able to call the police and say she's violating the dress code. I don't even know what it is that they think these people are violating.
But you're culturally sensitive. So a lot of people are...
Why can't we teach all of that to the people that we entrust to protect all of us?
Oh, great. That's a great question. Yeah. I'd like to see you put that on your court. Now, you're the defendant. You're defending Elijah. And what do you think you would say as a person defending your client? Is that a question you would ask? Because your answer is not going to be good.
Well, I look at it from another standpoint, because I used to be an officer in the military police corps, and they taught us, because it was the military, they taught us that you have to treat the person that you're dealing with who's drunk on a Saturday night. You have to treat him with certain deference, because Monday morning you're going to be at the PX with him.
Right.
And so I would like some of that deference to be given and taught to police officers here. I understand it's an extremely dangerous job, and they never know who's dangerous and who's not. But at a certain point, part of what they need to learn is who's dangerous and who's not. And if you can't learn that as a police officer, then maybe we, as your employers, should not trust you with a badge and a gun.
Well, I think that the problem is who's put on the police force and the culture and the mindset of the people that are put on the police force, because somehow these police officers thought it was their duty to get him off the street. And, in reach such a fast conclusion like that, they had to, number one, assume he was a threat because he had a mask on. Now, if there's a law that prohibits mask wearing, which I don't believe there was, then he didn't break the law. So what are you stopping him for? What are you stopping him for? That's what I want. I want to know the answer to that.
And also how long it took. I mean, the man is throwing up over and over again, yet they still have, well, I'm assuming they still have the weight on him, and they're still constricting him.
If you don't have probable cause, and walking down the street is not probable cause.
Isn't that,
you don't have probable cause, you don't have a reason to stop him.
But that is probable cause. He was walking, he's black, he's got a mask on.
Well, I go past that point. I say, you know what? Let's say that a mistake has been made. Let's say that there was a robbery a block away. And
right.
Somebody was wearing a mask.
I didn't hear any of that.
I didn't
hear any of that in the video. Didn't hear any of that. Okay. No.
I'm saying let's just give them the benefit of the doubt.
Okay.
Now, what happens after that to me is also very problematic, because for them to have had their weight on this person for so long, and for the person to be basically saying, "Hey, I'm not who you think I am. Please stop doing this." And for them
I can't breathe correctly.
Yes, exactly. And for it to take so long for them to finally get off of him to the point where he has thrown up more than once. It sounds like he threw up several times from what I could tell from the video, but he's 12. It just seems like a bit much. And
I don't believe Elijah McClain went after the police's gun. Sometimes they make those statements just to obfuscate, and sometimes they make the statements and they're not true.
But Judge Claudia Barber, I tell you this: if someone's holding you down and you don't believe you should be held down, you're probably going to go into a flailing motion. That flailing motion is going to perceive that you're going for something. I can. If we were live, I could demonstrate it, and it can be assumed that you're going for my gun when you're trying to get out of a hold that someone's putting you in that you don't believe you should be held in. It's almost.
But that's assuming. Assuming.
It's almost like if anyone has an animal, a cat, or a pet, give them a bath. They're flailing if they're not, right? So according to the police, you're supposed to choke them out.
And that's part of the problem as well, because you have more than one police officer there, and you're getting different instructions from them. One of them wants you to sit down, the other one wants you to put your hands up, and you're like, well, which one do I listen to? You listen to one, and the other one's yelling at you for not doing what the other one wanted you to do. And there is that situation where people panic, and it's not supposed to be.
There's like the other situation.
Will wants to say something. I'm sorry.
I'm still at why was he arrested? I'm still at that point. I didn't get the answer to that.
And
that is a very good point. That's true.
May I? What would a good cop have done? The good cop responds to the telephone call, which a suspicious guy. He sees this guy walking with a mask and walking slowly, which is inconsistent with it being bad.
Correct.
So, walking slowly and carrying a bag, a good cop would have said, said, "Why the mask?" And he says, in places like Japan, whenever anyone's sick, they put on a mask. Or I'm a germaphobe. Say,
he said he was an introvert. He said he
was an introvert.
Whatever that means, an introvert. Say, and okay. Second question, says the cop. What's in the bag? It's the stuff just bought at the store. Okay, a good cop would have said goodbye.
So, Will, what you're talking about is a conversation. When you treat people with respect, you're more apt to have a conversation to solicit information. But they were not having a conversation. They start to be very directive. And anybody in school, child, sit down or stop talking. The first thing a child's going to say is, "I wasn't talking." Once you put a directive on someone, they're going to come back with a defense. If he was having a conversation, there is no defense, and there could have been more to come out. So Will and Marilyn, what you're talking about, and it's like, what type of police officer would do this is a police officer who has never been taught to have conversations and yet want to give directives.
Well, here's the problem. I'm still at, why was he arrested? I'm still there now, everybody. I'm still there. But aside from that, if we move past that point, what I saw on the video was stop, stop, stop.
Yeah.
And to the extent that this is not a traffic stop, this man is walking on the street and he is not being arrested for some traffic violation.
Joni?
I'm missing the problem.
Oh, that was Holly.
I was just going to say, I can't see why there shouldn't be some prohibition about 3 people on one person. There's not going to be a good situation that comes out of that. That's so displaced power. I mean, so displaced power. And they shouldn't be converging. They should be backing off.
And I think that was why there was so much verbal discussions among the police. Oh, he went for my gun. Oh, he's so tough. Oh my God. He needs, what was that, ketamine? Yeah. Oh wow, he is so strong. And I'm sitting there going, why isn't the camera moving more? If he's so strong, why isn't the camera just jarring back and forth because this man is pushing all these police officers off of him?
Well, that's a questionable statement that was made. This guy is really heavy. He's not heavy.
He wasn't heavy.
Everybody saw what Elijah McClain looked at days before his death. The video showed him as a very thin and frail person.
Yeah.
He's not heavy. It's a lot of strength. That I raised I question the credibility of all those statements made. If they were just not statements to be made just for purposes of a body camera video being known to be going at the time.
Where was this?
Agree. I think that they were
called Colorado.
I think that they were playing to the video cam and making sure that their actions would be supported by any unfortunate result. And in this case, it did happen. And I'm surprised why it took them so long to
yes. Now let's unpack that point too. It took so long. In the judicial system, you have a situation where people are charged right away many times with felonies.
Okay.
But with this particular situation, these cops had the district attorney on their side. Now that's something to unpack right there.
Yes.
To the extent that this district attorney wouldn't move on any of this, and a special prosecutor had to be assigned to get these criminal charges, and this is years later, not months later.
So see, here's where we get, I get personally lost in the criminal justice system is that judges want to support their law enforcement. And I don't disagree with that, but yet a judge is supposed to be impartial and listen and weigh the evidence.
I think that there is a bias among judges.
So do I.
That endorse or support law enforcement officers to the detriment of innocent defendants, or to the detriment of not allowing credible evidence to come forward and to be presented, to the detriment of people who are seeking a fair and impartial trial. Now, my position is not to favor necessarily either side, but to listen and to weigh evidence and to evaluate who's telling the truth.
You're a rogue judge. You're out there. You're way out there. We got to remove her. She's just crazy. She's lost her mind. Let's get her off the bench because she doesn't know what she's not playing ball. Because that's Maryland. I mean, you're going to be a soon circuit court judge in Montgomery County, and you're going to have these cases. And the issue is if you have collective judges on the circuit court who believe that there is a bias, and you're like, well, what about evidence? And what about, why would they let you on? You're not going to play ball. You've already said you wasn't going to play ball.
Well, first of all, I want to say, let there be more judges like Judge Barber. Because if there were more judges like Judge Barber, I actually think all of us would be safer. Because
Me too.
Because police officers would know that when they are right, we would have their back. And people who have been the victim of police brutality would know that we also have their back. And I think that there's nothing worse than not being able to believe in the institutions that are supposed to protect you, because there's no place to go.
Exactly.
If you can't believe that the police will protect you, or that if you go to court, you get justice, then those are the people who say, you know what, forget it. I'm just going to do whatever I'm going to do. But if you could buy into the system, if something were to go wrong and I'm the victim, then I will be treated as a victim. Or if I'm the victimized, if I'm the victim, I will be treated as a victim, and I expect my victimizer to be treated as a victimizer. But when you can't be assured of these things, then you're less likely to buy into the system. You're less likely to say, okay, I'm not going to break the rules because justice will prevail.
We have a very diverse panel of people who join us on You Be the Judge every Wednesday at 6 p.m. And I want to ask a question about how fair do you believe the justice system is? And I'm going to answer first. To a person that looks like me, I believe I'm less favorable on all charges. It doesn't matter if it's a traffic stop to they believe I shot someone. I just believe it's less favorable. I'm not going to ask Marilyn or Judge Claudia Barber yet, but Holly?
Well, let me just say one more thing as well, Dr. Dyer. Not only do you look the way you look, but I've seen you in person.
Yeah.
So I know
I'm a tall.
You are a grandmaster. You're very tall. You're very fit.
Yeah.
So I think that if someone were to say, oh, by the way, he was so strong, he was so tough, and then you walked into the room, people would be like, yeah, he does look like he's strong and tough. Look how tall he is, because I know I've got to go like this to look up to you, figuratively and literally. So you have, I think, a triple, quadruple whammy, whereas Judge Barber was just talking about how slight Elijah McClain was. Yeah, exactly. With you, that would not be the argument. They would be like, oh, yeah, I looked at him. I believe that he is, even though you're definitely not like that. But still, that would be the impression that people would get.
Holly, what do you think how the justice system is? Do you think it would be fairly, and think from your own perspective, because I know it's hard to think from an different perspective.
Someone else.
And maybe you could, but from your own perspective.
Well, I'm thinking that this is George Floyd before George Floyd. Basically,
it was
same thing. But I also want to point out, I want to do the other way just to give another perspective. Did you see that Governor Northam pardoned 3 black men who were just absolutely unfairly put to death for murders that it was easy to prove that didn't exist. I mean, anyway, just see that because that people had come to him asking for a posthumous pardon and thinking they were going to have to really convince him. And he said, I've already decided I'm going to do this. This is egregious. And so people are in the mode of thinking a little bit more about this.
But hold on, Holly, I have to tell you, working with politicians, it's easy to pardon someone postpartum.
Posthumously.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, the recidivism rate for that, I think, is 0.
It's 0, right. So it's easy to...
That's true, but it's...
So, again, how do you feel the justice system is? Is it... And, again, speak from your own personal perception, because for you people listening on the podcast and live podcast, you can't see Holly, but she's a beautiful white lady. So
thank you so much. But what you can't see is
intelligent.
that I was the wife of a defense attorney. So there you see it. So I have a different opinion, and many people do, but. I was thinking one thing. I got the League of Women Voters newsletter today, or a couple of days ago, and Montgomery County is reviewing police procedures and invites anyone who would like to join that committee. I think it'd be interesting, because you don't hear this. I mean, what I wanted to hear is, what were those police thinking? We never get the thoughts of the police. I mean, what could they have been thinking? You just wonder.
Well, I have to say that that district attorney who's bringing up let's hear what you think about police procedures is something about more of a political stunt more than an actual stunt, because we've been asking for reviews for several years now, and all of a sudden now you want to bring this up because now you're running for an election. I don't buy it. So, Molly, please, what do you think? You're on mute, Molly. We need those glasses. I tell you, as we get older, I'm the same way. I'm doing this. It is the glass. I call it the eyeglass exercise, because I'm either taking them off, or I'm putting them on. I'm taking them off, and I'm putting them on.
May I pose a question?
I think if you push the space bar, Molly. Sorry, Will. Go ahead.
Yeah, you can do that too. Do Alt and space. Just hit the 2 together, and that temporarily unmutes you.
Okay, my question is this.
Okay, I'm unmuted.
Suppose.
I think.
Molly, now you have to wait because Will's asking his question.
I will shut up.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Will. I think that the judicial system is very racist. I think that black people are considered guilty before they've done anything. And it's because so many Americans are racist. And it doesn't matter whether they're lawyers or judges or police officers or whatever, they're in positions of power, and they're doing things the way they see it. They perceive problems with black people.
Thanks, Molly. Will, go ahead, ask your question.
I have a question. Suppose a lawyer sues on behalf of this guy's estate, and the city pays $2 million to settle the lawsuit. Should that $2 million come out of the police budget for the next year?
Maybe it should come out of their retirement fund, or to bring it home. The question is also, should this come out of the taxpayers' expenses, and I think that that's a real issue.
I like the retirement fund. I don't think it should come out of the budget because the budget is used for.
¿Es así como está? Sí, lo dije como es.
Oh, Patricia, hold on. I believe she, I believe it should come out of the retirement fund. I like that idea. I don't think it should be out of the budget. I just don't. Patricia, I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead, Patricia. You were going to say something.
Yes, I'm in full standing with what you just stated. It should come out of their retirement funds because that's where it should hurt where it really get it to where the point of responsibility and accountability needs to be shown.
Yeah, I agree.
And, I've seen so many cases back in California, in Los Angeles where I've been, they get fired or they're allowed to retire and they still get benefits. And I'm thinking, are we really serious? When you are fired, you should receive zero, nothing, no pension, nothing. And they need to state it in the law to represent that.
I agree. Miss Ruby.
It's the Reverend Dr. Ruby Moon.
She's muted.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
No, you're muted again.
I'm back.
I think she was agreeable.
She muted herself again.
Miss Gilda. We'll move right along.
She's muted also.
Here's
Ruby.
Here's Ruby now.
Okay, Ruby, go ahead. What are your thoughts?
It's kind of difficult to talk on these issues because we know without a doubt that racism is alive and well in this country. And when you could see that young man not doing anything, just walking, why should he have to lose his life? And I always think about George Floyd. When he was trying to beg for his life, he said, "You are going to kill me." And even then, the policeman could not salvage his life. So as we go through this world and see so many things happening, I have 4 young grandsons. One was coming from work late one evening. It was really at night, about 10 o'clock at night. The policeman pulled him over and said, "Why did you run that light?" He said, "Officer, I didn't see a light." He said, "It's back there." And my grandson had opened the window and had his hands out of the window. And he said, "Officer, I don't see a light back there." The officer said, oh, I made a mistake. Go on. A few nights later, he was stopped again by another policeman. He put his hands out of the window, and the officer asked, "Why were you speeding?" He said, "Officer, I wasn't speeding." He said, "Actually, I was going 5 miles less than the speed limit." And the officer looked in his car, looked all over, said, "How much drug you have in this car?" He said, "Sir, I don't have any drugs. I don't use drugs." The officer said, "Well, go on." Now, this is my grandson. His parents are afraid to report this, and I don't blame them because you don't know what the consequences would be later. But this is the kind of thing that we've got to tolerate as Black people in this world, and it's really sad.
It reminds me something Dr. Dyer mentioned some time ago on a previous program. He said that how can you tell an officer no? And, a Black male, can a Black male tell an officer no without getting some type of anti-response? And that's where the culture, the police culture, should be examined. because, Elijah McClain is a human being. And the bad part about racism is the fact that there's a certain callous indifference. These officers ganged up on him, rendered him powerless because they can, and because they didn't care that they had done this to a black man, because their lives don't matter. And the fact that he died, they didn't even think that they should be charged with anything, with his death. So, that it's just as bad as mob killing, just as bad as lynching somebody, because it's lawlessness. And to the extent that you have a district attorney who's not going to be for the people in arresting somebody for lawlessness, for stopping somebody for no valid reason, that's a real serious problem, not just for the community, but for the state of Colorado and for that entire county. You have officers on the police force that have no shame whatsoever to stop and cause a human being's death like that.
Miss Gilda? Gilda?
Yes, I thought what Miss Ruby said is exactly what I would have said. It would take a lot to change Americans' opinion. It is in their fiber, or my fiber now. Racism is there, and the black and white issue is not going to stop in no time soon.
Dr. Dyer?
Yes.
Miss Minor. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My deceased son, his daughter told me last week she was driving and the police officer pulled her over. Now, she has tinted windows, and he stated the reason he pulled her over because he couldn't see whether or not she had on seatbelts.
See how frivolous that reason is? See how that is a frivolous reason to pull somebody over.
But isn't that part of, Maryland, when it comes to probable cause, isn't that allowed? Isn't that a net that's okay? It's not okay, but isn't it okay, legally okay?
Well, you can't pull somebody over because you can't see if they had seatbelts. If you saw that they didn't have seatbelts, you could say, okay, I have the right to pull you over because you're not wearing a seatbelt. But it can't be, oh yeah, well, I can't see. Where's the probable cause if you just can't see? And at this point, I really want to go back to Dr. Moon because Dr. Moon has led an extraordinary life, and I've been trying to get her to be a special guest on this program. I mean, I consider her one of our civil rights leaders, and I would love to have her be a special guest on the program so we could talk with her about her life experiences and all these famous people that she met, and whether we could learn from the experiences of the people who were there during the so-called civil rights movement, although we're still having a civil rights movement right now. So I'm thinking Dr. Moon next week, September 8th.
Yeah, Dr. Moon, are you able to visit with us next week on Wednesday at 6 p.m.?
And you could be our special guest. You unmute again. Oh, it was off of mute and then it came back on again.
What about now?
Right there, you're good.
Okay. I could be available. I could be available next Wednesday.
Oh, that's a blessing. As we keep talking about on You Be the Judge, and it's legal issues, it's information, and it's understanding. And we, as a group of people listening, talking, I feel your pain, and I also know that we are very perplexed. We're very much disturbed because we are not in the minds of the actors and the actees of what's going on. And if we were able to get an officer who was part of this and to ask him our question, what were you thinking? And a lot of police officers, it was the moment of the time, it was a reactionary, and maybe they would say something else.
But a life was lost, and that's where you have to look at this more seriously.
Right.
So this is not whoops, I made a mistake.
Right.
Well, but you also wonder, how were they trained? And I remember the Chauvin trial, they made a big deal about
the training.
He was counter to his training, but you don't hear that very much. And you said take away the money from the retirement fund, but that could take away from people who were really, wonderful, thoughtful people. You don't want to take it away from people who are doing the right thing as opposed to people who are just egregiously doing the wrong thing.
Well, hopefully, when it comes to teams, and I learned this in the military, you're accountable for your partner. You want to be accountable for your team, your partner, your unit, your group, your squad. Everyone is accountable for each other. Now, there's going to be some rogue people. We understand that. But let the people who are the rogue, we all saw Serpico, right? Let the people who they consider to be the rogue officer and put them out on the limb and saying, we point the finger, we don't agree with that. And let their stuff be protected. And let that person be judged by the courts accordingly. But they're hiding behind the blue line. They're hiding behind their badges. They're hiding behind the judges who's going to protect them. They're hiding behind the chief of police, the sheriffs, all who are protecting them, because as a chief of police, I don't want my squads or my police officers to be put out there to be shot. I don't. I want to protect them. I love them. I want them safe. I understand I have to reprimand this one officer, but I don't want all my officers to be judged like they're some type of bad demons. And so I think that's where you get a lot of a pushback, and they're like, we'll handle this ourselves. Well, those days are gone. Those days are over. You can't handle it yourself because you're not handling it. That's what we know now publicly. You're not handling it. Before we go off the air, Marilyn, before we leave.
Oh, I definitely agree, because when you put in a position and you're not held accountable as a group, sometimes you have one bad person that everybody else who's doing the right thing has to stand up with, whether or not they agree with it. And in a situation like that, when you say, hey, I'm not standing with that person because that person didn't do the right thing in that situation, then it makes the other people more accountable to what they have to do. Like, for instance, when somebody says something bad about a lawyer, you don't see all the other lawyers coming in to defend that person. I don't know of any other profession, to tell you the truth, where that happens, because you have doctors who say about other doctors that this was malpractice. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but with the thin blue line, as they say, it seems like it's one for all and all for one. And because of that, I don't think the people who are out there doing the things they're not supposed to are held accountable for their actions, and they should be.
And it may be a situation in this case that this should have been handled by a healthcare professional, and the police should know when a certain situation comes up where they have to step back and call another professional. It's like you have a hammer. That's the only tool you have. Mm-hmm. Everything looks like a nail.
That's a very good point.
The abuse was not,
Judge Clary. Go ahead, Will.
Hi.
Judge Barbara?
Well, I again believe this is about police culture. But I don't, from what I saw in the video, there was no valid reason to stop him. And there was no valid reason to make an arrest. For what? Walking is a crime.
Walking while black is a crime. Walking while black in a mask is a crime. Walking while black in a certain neighborhood is a crime. Jogging while black in a neighborhood is a crime. It seems like just being black is the crime, and we don't want to frivolously say it and throw it out like some coins or phrases, but we have the proof in the deaths. We also have the proofs in the incarceration rate, but we definitely have the proofs in the deaths, because none of the deaths have been credible and justified.
Yeah, and we saw a lot of white police officers in this situation, but I actually think that the colors of the police officers don't really make...
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly, because you would see black police officers do the same thing to... Yeah, it's sad. It's sad.
That's why we don't get, Holly, hold on, but that's why I don't really believe it's a black and white issue, more it is a police cultural issue.
Mm-hmm.
Holly?
Well, I was just going to recommend a book that I just finished, and it's not new, and it's Derek Bell's Faces at the Bottom of the Well, which is the permanence of racism. And the thing was, he was the first black law professor at Harvard, but it didn't keep him from saying Harvard was racist. I mean, it was, and he didn't do too well there for that, but it didn't stop him. And anyway, I just so recommend it.
And Cornel West is still saying Harvard is racist to this day because they won't give him tenures.
Right, and I know Cornel West personally, and he's just a brilliant man, and hopefully one day I'll try to get him on the show because he's very vocal and he's very active and animated. So I would have to say that he's very animated. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you.
Listening, you be the judge.
Please tune in. Oh, sorry, Dr. Dyer. Please tune in to see the Reverend Dr. Ruby Moon next week, because like I said, I think it's going to be a pretty interesting show because Dr. Moon has so much to say that